Today, Rebecca is going to walk us through the process of taking raw fiber straight from an animal all the way through a finished woven product. So, hi, Rebecca.
Hello, and welcome to 3 Minutes Fiberworks. We have all sorts of things that we can show you today, and what we're going to focus on is how to move from raw fiber through to some sort of finished product, whether that be a rug or a piece of fabric or an art piece. So there's two types of fiber. One tends to come from animals and the other from plants. I have some examples of plant fiber that I will show you in a little bit, but I want to start with the animal fiber. There are multiple animals that can produce fiber. This is an example of raw fiber coming from a goat. This is raw fiber coming from a sheep. And this is raw fiber coming from an alpaca. And you can see that it comes in a variety of colors. In its raw form, the fiber has an oil or a wax in it. And it can have a lot of what's called vegetable matter, which is just leftover hay or grass from how the animal was living. So the first thing that we want to do is wash the fiber. And we wash it with very high temperatures in order to melt this oil and wax out of it. After we clean it up, you can see that it is a much brighter white, and you can start to see the lock structure of the fiber. This is an example of cleaned sheep wool. And then the alpaca fiber, if you clean it up, is actually a little bit different structured. It does not have the curlicues that you would expect to see in the wool. And that's what makes alpaca a little bit more of a finer fiber to work with. So once you have your fiber in a washed state, you can do a few different things with it. You can dye it to whatever color you want. You can go ahead and spin it into yarn right from this, or you can process it a little bit further so that your yarn is more consistent and even. If we want to process it, one of the goals is to go ahead and get the leftover vegetable matter out and to go ahead and break up these locks. One of the tools that we would use is called a picker. And a picker has two beds of nails that are specifically designed to go ahead and break up the lock structure of wool. So to use a picker, we feed in some of our wool, and the two beds of nails fluff it up. You can see I'm fluffing it right out the other side. Now, if I want to take this organized fluff, I can bring it over here, and my goal is to make these disorganized fibers all run the same direction. And I can do that by hand using hand parters, or I can go ahead and use a drum parter, which makes it a little bit easier. When I am done with this process, what results is what's called a vat of fiber, where all of the fibers are running in more or less the same direction. And I can take this vat and I can spin it into yarn, or I can go ahead and felt it into whatever type of creation I'm looking for. At any point in time, I can dye the fiber. So I can dye the raw fiber, I can dye the washed fiber, or I can dye it after I have carded it. And you can see that once you dye the fiber, you can create any type of color that you're looking for. All right, I want to go ahead and show you, once we've created our vat, how we can go ahead and make yarn. So we are going to switch to a spinning wheel, and the spinning wheel's goal is to go ahead and take the fiber and make it into yarn. So what we do is we add twist into the fiber, and the twist holds it together in order to create yarn. And we can create yarn as thick or as thin as we want. It depends upon the type of wheel that we're using and the type of project that we want the yarn for. Now, what we've been demonstrating is with an animal fiber. I want to show you some examples of plant fibers as well. So plant fibers come from a variety of plants. They tend to not have the same stretch as animal fibers. For instance, this is flax, and you would make linen from flax, and you can see this looks more like human hair than any of the animal fiber samples that we have shown. So this makes a very strong yarn, but not necessarily a stretchy yarn. You can make fiber from several different types of plants. The next most common is cotton, and this is an example of cotton fiber. You can also make fiber from more exotic plants. This is an example of fiber from the rose plant. You can see how shiny it is. And this is an example of fiber from a pineapple plant. And again, once you have created your yarn, you can go ahead and dye it any type of color that you're looking for. And if you're making yarn, you can use several different processes to take that yarn to a finished product. You can weave with your yarn, you can knit with your yarn, crochet, multiple different options. Okay. So what we would like to go ahead and show you today is how to take yarn and weave with it. So we're going to switch over to a loom, which is a type of machine that you use to make fabric or a rug with.
Process. So we look forward, let's take a look at these looms. That's fantastic.
So when you think about weaving, most people think about moving under, over, under, over, under, over. But if you're working on something that is very large or very densely packed, that process gets to be very tedious and difficult. So over time, different cultures develop looms. And the point of a loom is to help make weaving easier. Each of these threads is run through what's called a heddle, which is this metal piece here, and a heddle sits on a shaft. And the loom gives the weaver the ability to individually raise or lower these shafts. So instead of the weaver having to pick up under, over, we simply raise a shaft, and now every other thread has been picked up. If I switch which shaft is raised, then I can go ahead and pick up the other thread. So when I'm weaving, what I'm doing is taking a shuttle that has yarn wrapped on it. I am moving it through these threads using this bar to bring it forward. And then I'm switching which yarn is up and which yarn is down. And I can continue with the process. This loom has two shafts, which means I have the ability to raise every other thread. Looms can have four shafts, which would give me the ability to raise one out of every four threads. They can have 8 shafts, that, so on and so forth. So the amount of patterning that you can do with a loom can be very, very complex. To give you some idea of the types of things you can make, you can go ahead and make a rug with a loom. This is a rug made out of jeans. You can make scarves. This scarf is woven with hand-dyed and hand-spun alpaca yarn. You can make complex patterns while you're weaving. And you can make several different types of items. This, for instance, is a placemat. This is a scarf. And for those out there saying that there's no way they can go ahead and accomplish this scarf was woven by a 5-year-old. And then in some cultures, they would make extraordinarily complex patterns for decoration purposes, either for clothes or around the house. So, if you are at all interested in weaving, please feel free to come on down and see us, and we can introduce you to this wonderful process. And if you have any questions, reach out, let me know. I'd be more than happy to answer any of them.